felt so targeted and it felt patronizing, as if this whole thing was our fault.
Orders to stop gathering, calls to stay inside. Tonight, just 6 hours into Boulder's new public health order, students say they're being unfairly targeted.
We're far away from our families. We have no one. They want us to isolate in our rooms. I think there's a human dignity problem here.
Crumbling infrastructure.
And this building is 104 years old.
A nonprofit dedicated to housing the elderly says they are in dire need of new elevators, and tonight you can help.
You worry, we don't want residents get in the elevator alone.
And an incredible community effort to get a home once deemed uninhabitable back to normal, so a family with 8 special needs kids can go home.
It feels so good to be able to help others in their greatest time of need.
Boulder County Public Health is taking action as the number of cases rise among CU Boulder students. The county implemented a new public health order today requiring people 18 to 22 years old to stop gathering within city limits. That is in any way, any shape, or any size of group. That went into effect this afternoon.
The county has also identified 3 dozen residences where health orders have repeatedly been violated. And they're now forcing those students to stay and not leave their home at all. And right now, the University of Colorado Boulder has the largest outbreak in the state with nearly 1,200 cases.
Denver7's Addie Guajardo live in Boulder tonight. Addie, we are hours now into this brand new public health order. What are you seeing tonight?
Well, Ann and Shannon, the order went into effect at 4 o'clock about 6 hours ago. We spoke to residents here at CU Boulder who shrugged off that ban on gatherings. Now, we also went to the Hill where we found gatherings at some of those homes with repeated violations. Parties and get-togethers. It's what college is all about.
College has always been about other people.
An experience that brought Matthew Perrone back to campus.
The people who went here before want to meet up with their friends.
A decision now filled with restrictions. On Thursday, Boulder County Public Health issued an order banning 18 to 22-year-olds from gathering in the city of Boulder. Now, even if people live inside the same home, like a fraternity or a sorority house, the health order bans them from gathering in common areas. And as we witnessed, gatherings are still happening on the Hill.
I think it's a radical decision.
Matthew says he feels like a target.
It's kind of shocking, right? That like you could be policed for just, for this conversation alone. Like, I could be fined $1,000 and put in jail for 90 days.
He says he feels trapped.
We're far away from our families. We have no one. They want us to isolate in our rooms. I think there's a human dignity problem here.
A little bit restrictive.
This student tells us she doesn't see anything wrong with grabbing dinner with her residence hall friends, even though it technically violates the health order.
If you live in a residence hall, but there are other people that don't live in your residence room, then you cannot gather with those people during this 2-week period.
On campus.
And this is just one of the new violations that they will be looking for.
And off campus. Officers will be enforcing the public health order. Now, I'm told the enforcement is going to start by educating these young people about what could happen, and over time it will increase. For example, students could face a 10-day suspension or even expulsion, depending on how egregious the violation is. Other young people throughout the city of Boulder could face a $1,000 fine or 90 days in jail. Reporting live in Boulder, Addie Guajardo, Denver7.
All right, Addie, thank you. And it's not just Boulder here. Denver Mayor Michael Hancock says the spike in coronavirus cases in Denver is being attributed to college-age students. The city's positivity rate now has creeped up just under 5%. The goal is to not exceed 5%. Denver saw a positivity rate of 2.7% just last month. So, like Boulder, Denver is taking action, implementing new public health orders. They include temperature and symptoms checks for people on Denver college campuses, expanded face covering requirements to include athletes, both indoor and outdoor sports where physical distancing is not possible, and restricted visitor access to on-campus housing.
And college students at Regis University are complaining about living conditions during their 2-week quarantine. Students were ordered to quarantine after the health department traced 57% of COVID-19 cases at the university to the Residence Village housing complex. Students started a change.org petition demanding better conditions. In fact, one student shared photos of trash piling up in the hallway. Others complained about the food and said bathroom sinks are the only source of water.
The fact that we're paying so much money and being treated like this, I don't think it's okay.
In a statement, the university said, "We strive to make the current isolation and quarantine living situations as comfortable as possible," and they promise to address any outstanding issues. And just a reminder that the big testing site at Pepsi Center will close at the end of the month. That's next Wednesday. It's been open since late May. The city says it's shifting its strategy to focus on smaller pop-up testing sites in local communities to make it easier for people to get tested in their own neighborhoods.
Little Sisters of the Poor have been caring for the elderly in Denver for more than 100 years, and their buildings are starting to show it.
Denver7's Gary Brode spoke to the head of operations who's contacting Denver7 because elevators need to be replaced immediately, and because of COVID, they just can't afford it.
Peace in the twilight of life. It's what Sister Mercy and the Little Sisters of the Poor take pride in giving their residents.
That's what my call is: take care of the elderly, be with them, journey with them.
Sister Mercy arrived at the Denver location about a year ago, long after a major problem began.
I'm afraid of very much to be elevator.
Elevators in each of the two buildings have a combined age of nearly 100 years old, and their age is starting to show.
One of our residents went up the other day and he was telling me, I pressed the button and it went up to the second floor, but the door didn't open. So I pressed the button to go down, came down to the ground floor. It did open.
Joe Seafried says problems like that have been happening more and more in the last 6 months.
Hit or miss. It's, you might not know when you get in the elevator if you're going to make it to the floor you want to get to.
So far, they've raised $65,000 in donations, but it's not nearly enough.
Preliminary estimate is about $250,000, probably be a little bit more. These are traction elevators. They're much older, and it's going to be much more expensive, probably twice as much.
And while they could dip into the general fund to fix it, there's concern they wouldn't have much left for anything else.
We could use some of the cash we've been saving towards the elevator. We've thought about it for a while. But with COVID, our resident numbers are down. We're not allowed to admit anybody. So as people pass on, we can't fill the rooms. So of course that affects our cash flow.
Without help from the community, Little Sisters of the Poor, and more importantly, its residents, are stuck.
My biggest concern is that we're going to have a resident and a nurse that may be with them stuck in an elevator for quite a while. Okay, so you call the fire department comes out. How do you get a person in a wheelchair out of an elevator? I don't know the answer to that. Hasn't happened, but I don't want to find out.
In Denver, Gary Brode, Denver7.
And if you'd like to help, we have more information right now on how to donate on thedenverchannel.com.
We first showed you this video last night on Denver7 News at 10. That car driving through a crowd of demonstrators in downtown Denver. Denver police said today people were kicking the car. The driver, they say, was just trying to escape that situation. And we spoke to that driver today, who says he had no intention of hurting anyone. He says he was just driving to pick up a client when his car was surrounded.
At that moment, I didn't know if somebody was getting in my car. I didn't know what the sounds, it was just chaos.
Nobody was hurt, and at this time, that driver won't face charges.
Today, President Trump and the First Lady paid their respects to the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. But outside the Supreme Court building, the president was booed. He has sparked outrage for pushing to name a replacement and after refusing to say there would be a peaceful transfer of power if he loses the election. But the president's press secretary reassured reporters today that the president will accept the results of a free and fair election. And today, Colorado Secretary of State Jenna Griswold announced the state will give federal CARES Act dollars to counties that open an early voting center the Sunday before the election. Early voting centers aren't typically open on Sundays, but Adams County is the first to say they will do so. There will be a voting center open at the Moorhead Recreation Center in Aurora on November 1st, and it will be open from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Tickets for this Sunday's Broncos game are not cheap, but you can get your hands on half-price tickets starting tomorrow, 10 a.m. There's going to be about 150 of them available through Ticketmaster at half price. And we checked today, the cheapest seat we found is almost $350. We do expect them to go fast, so set your alarms. Well, the Pac-12 is getting back to college football, but as we continue to monitor those cases in Boulder, it's not clear what this means for CU football. In August, that conference decided to postpone all sports through the end of the year and then reassess in January. Well, today, they said football can start November 6th for teams anyway that meet the necessary state and local health approvals. Men's and women's basketball can also start as planned at the end of November. Now, Colorado State football will be returning as well. The Mountain West Conference also announced today football will return in late October.
And it's official. Rapids fans will be allowed back into Dick's Sporting Goods Park starting October 7th. Last week, the Department of Public Health and Environment approved the team's plan to allow just over 1,100 fans inside. That's about 6% of stadium capacity. Boy, a battle until the end. A tough loss tonight for the Denver Nuggets, who are now gearing up for a do-or-die game against the Lakers.
Sports Director Lionel Bienvenu joins us with a look at the highlights and also looking ahead tonight. Lionel?
Yeah, guys, the Nuggets have worked magic this entire playoffs, right? And they'll need some more now. They've come back from 3-1 down to the Jazz and the Clippers. Now they're going to have to do the same against the Lakers. The best play of Game 4, second quarter, Jamal Murray split the defenders, went up, under, and around LeBron James like Mike. If I could be like Mike. Jamal went Jordan on him. Nuggets were down by 6. End of the third, Jamal to Michael Porter Jr. He hit a third rock with 0.7 to go. The Nuggets down 3, but they could not overcome the refs and LeBron scoring in the fourth quarter, getting all the calls and losing the rebounding battle. All that. 114-108, Nuggets down 3-1. Third consecutive series now. Malone blamed his players for the lack of defense and effort.
It was just too many breakdowns. This is the Western Conference Finals, Game 4, and if you can't help us on the defensive end, then maybe you shouldn't be on the floor. We got to be able to lock in and finish it off with the rebound, and we just had too many empty possessions on that end tonight.
All right, another elimination game Saturday night in Game 5. Nuggets have to win 3 in a row to get to their first NBA Finals. More coming up later in sports.